There's something magnetic about silence, not the absence of words, but the presence of meaning behind them. When a man says, "No," it's rarely the end. Sometimes it's a pause, a test, a mirror, and yet most never wait long enough to see that no slowly melt into comeback. You see, we live in a world obsessed with noise, words, explanations, arguments, and endless proving. But the strongest presence needs no performance. The man who learns the power of quiet strength, the woman who learns the art of still confidence, both become unforgettable. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And in the journey of relationships, rejection often becomes the mirror showing who you really are beneath the mask of need. The one who accepts the "no," not as punishment but as purification, transforms it. Because the moment you stop chasing validation, you start embodying value. It's in that silence, that unspoken self-respect, that calm detachment, that subtle growth, where everything changes, where absence becomes attraction, where your calm becomes his curiosity, where your distance becomes the mirror he can't look away from. He said no, but he will remember the one who didn't beg, didn't break, didn't chase, only evolved. Because silence isn't empty. It's full of answers he hasn't yet found. A THPSYCOLOGUIMO, rejection is not a closed door, it is a mirror. When someone says no, it does not only speak about their choice. It reveals the unspoken truths about you, about them, and about the hidden dynamics that govern human connection. Every no we receive carries within it a sacred lesson that the ego resists but the soul recognizes. It is the moment life strips away illusions and shows you where your worth truly stands, inside, not outside. In Jungian thought, rejection is an archetypal initiation. It is the beginning of individuation, the process of becoming whole. When a person withdraws their approval, love, or interest, the unconscious self is called to the surface. We are forced to meet the parts of ourselves we have been ignoring, the parts that needed validation, the parts that feared being unseen, the parts that mistook attachment for love. Rejection, then, is not cruelty. It is the psyche's invitation to awaken. When a man says, "No," it is often not a judgment of your value, but a reflection of his internal state. People reject not always because you lack something, but because your presence exposes something within them that they are not ready to face. Sometimes your light touches their shadows, your strength confronts their insecurities, your independence challenges their control. His no becomes less about your unworthiness and more about his unreadiness. Yet the wounded ego cannot see this truth immediately. The first instinct is to chase, to prove, to ask, "Why not me?" But that very question reveals dependency. The moment you accept rejection without resistance, you transcend it. You reclaim the power that was momentarily given away. True strength lies in stillness, in not demanding answers but allowing them to unfold through time and self-awareness. Rejection is a revelation, because it shows you who you are without external affirmation. It reveals whether your confidence is built on others' opinions or on your own inner alignment. When someone walks away, it tests your foundation. Do you collapse, or do you expand? Those who expand transform rejection into redirection. They evolve quietly, and in that evolution, they become magnetic again. Not because they try to return, but because they rise higher. Every no that once broke you becomes a compass pointing you inward. It strips away dependence, false identities, and the illusion of control. It pushes you into solitude, where silence becomes your teacher. And it is in that silence that transformation begins. You begin to see that the no you once feared was not rejection from another, but redirection to your deeper self. So when he says no, do not rush to change his mind. Change your energy. Transform your pain into purpose, your confusion into clarity, your attachment into awareness. Because those who learn from rejection no longer chase love, they attract it. In the end, rejection is not a wall, it is a window. Through it you finally see yourself as you truly are, whole, worthy, and free. Atich power of silenci. Narjuas px lo udr to noas. Silence is one of the most misunderstood forms of communication. In a world where everyone is trying to be heard, the one who learns to be quiet becomes unforgettable. Silence is not emptiness, it is energy contained. It is the voice of self-mastery, the calm assertion of someone who no longer needs to explain their worth. Where words often come from impulse, silence comes from understanding, and in that understanding lies the deepest form of influence. When a person withdraws from noise and chooses stillness, something profound begins to happen. Energy starts to speak. Presence becomes language. Without saying a word, your calmness tells a story that the restless cannot ignore. There is an invisible current in silence that awakens curiosity, reflection, even regret in others. It is not manipulation, it is resonance. You no longer shout to be seen, you are felt. Carl Jung once observed that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Silence is that unseen catalyst. It transforms energy without confrontation. When he says, no, and you respond with silence instead of desperation, your energy shifts. You stop radiating need and start radiating value. Silence unsettles the one who expected reaction. It holds a mirror to their own emotions, forcing them to confront what they truly feel beneath the surface. That is the quiet strength of non-response. It moves deeper than words ever could. Words may argue, justify, and plead, but silence simply is. It stands tall, unshaken, and in that stillness lies unmatched confidence. True silence is not withdrawal from communication. It is elevated communication. It speaks in presence, posture, timing, and vibration. When your silence comes from clarity, not fear, it becomes magnetic. People feel it. They may not understand it, but they are drawn to it, because in silence you emit a frequency of self-respect. You no longer chase closure, you become closure. You no longer seek understanding, you embody understanding. The psychology behind this is simple yet profound. The human mind resists what it cannot predict. When someone expects reaction and receives silence, the energy imbalance makes them restless. Their mind keeps revisiting the absence you leave behind. Your silence becomes their echo. It creates space for realization, space for them to see the contrast between your calm and their chaos. That contrast is power. The most powerful people are not those who speak the loudest, but those whose silence carries the weight of self-assurance. Their energy says, I am not here to prove, I am here to be. And that presence demands respect. It draws others back, not through persuasion, but through gravity. Because the truth is, silence has a language that the heart always understands. It says, I am not angry. I am aware, I am not waiting, I am becoming. So when words fail or fall short, choose silence, not as retreat, but as revelation. For in the end, silence is not the absence of power, it is its purest form. Asiaf raspit as maginasum, machi velu bicum vcbl. There is a certain glow that appears when a person rediscovers their worth. A quiet, radiant strength that does not demand attention yet commands it. Self-respect is that glow. It is the invisible magnetism that pulls the world toward you without you lifting a finger. When you begin to honor yourself, the universe takes note. People feel it. Energy rearranges itself around your standard. What once chased begins to return, not because you pursued, but because you remembered who you are. In every relationship, spoken or unspoken, there is a constant exchange of energy. The one who values themselves transmits a silent message. I am whole. The one who lacks it transmits, I need to be completed. And in that exchange, attraction finds its direction. People are drawn to strength, not because it dominates, but because it liberates. True self-respect doesn't shout, it simply refuses to bend where bending would mean betrayal of the self. Carl Jung believed that every individual carries both the shadow and the light within. When you lack self-respect, you dwell in the shadow of others' opinions. But when you begin to honor yourself, your time, your peace, your emotional boundaries. You step into your light, and light, by its very nature, attracts. It does not chase darkness away by fighting, it simply shines until the darkness dissolves. When someone rejects you or walks away, it is often not a call to prove your worth, but to return to it. Self-respect transforms pain into perspective. Instead of asking, "Why wasn't I enough?" you begin to ask, "Why did I think I needed their validation to feel enough?" That shift is liberation, because once your worth is no longer up for negotiation, your energy becomes unshakable. People can sense when your self-worth is stable. They feel it in how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you respond, or sometimes how you don't. You no longer over-explain. You no longer beg for attention. You do not need to remind anyone of your value, because your very being has become a reminder. That is the magnetic pull of self-respect. It requires no performance. It simply exists. And it is precisely this existence that turns indifference into interest. The moment you detach from needing someone's approval, they begin to see what they once overlooked. Your absence becomes weighty. Your silence becomes meaningful. They begin to question why your energy feels irreplaceable, but the secret is it's not because you changed to win them back. It's because you stopped abandoning yourself. Self-respect is not arrogance. It is alignment. It is the quiet decision to no longer participate in situations that cost your peace. It is the understanding that what you tolerate, you teach. And when you teach the world how to treat you, you redefine attraction at its deepest level. In the end, when you respect yourself fully, your value becomes visible, not through words or effort, but through energy. You stop running after what isn't yours, and what truly belongs to you begins to find its way home. The art of detachment. Detachment is not the absence of love. It is the presence of clarity. It is the moment you stop clinging to what has already taught you everything it was meant to teach. The art of detachment is not coldness. It is consciousness. It is the quiet recognition that some things are meant to shape you, not stay with you. When you master detachment, you stop trying to own outcomes and start learning from them. You no longer beg the world to give you what you can already give yourself: peace. In a society that glorifies control and possession, detachment feels unnatural. We are taught to hold on, to fight, to prove our importance through persistence. But true power begins when you realize that holding on to something that drains you is not strength. It's fear disguised as loyalty. Detachment, on the other hand, is strength in its purest form. It is the ability to walk away without bitterness, to love without demand, to lose without losing yourself. Carl Jung often spoke about individuation, the journey of becoming whole. Detachment is part of that journey. When you detach, you are no longer driven by the ego's desire to be chosen, accepted, or validated. Instead, you step into the soul's desire to be aligned. You begin to see rejection not as abandonment, but as redirection. The one who left was not a loss but a mirror, reflecting what within you still needed healing. And once you see this clearly, loss transforms into leverage. Leverage is born when pain turns into perspective. The energy once spent on convincing, chasing, or proving can now be redirected toward evolution. Detachment teaches you to transmute emotional pain into creative power. What you once sought in another, you begin to cultivate within yourself: stability, affection, respect, and purpose. And this self-sufficiency makes you magnetic again, because nothing attracts more strongly than a person who no longer needs to be understood to feel complete. When he said, "No," you may have thought it was an ending, but detachment reveals that it was a beginning. The moment you began to reclaim the energy you had given away, the silence that follows loss becomes a sacred laboratory for transformation. You begin to see that every closed door carries wisdom. Every absence teaches presence. Every ending prepares you for expansion. Detachment gives you the eyes to see that what left your life did not take your worth with it. It simply left space for a higher version of you to emerge. The art of detachment is not about indifference. It's about insight. It's the deep understanding that love without freedom is possession, and possession without peace is prison. Detachment gives you freedom, not from people, but from dependence, and in that freedom you rediscover your power. In the end, detachment is not a wall, it is a bridge. It connects pain to purpose, endings to beginnings, and loss to growth. It teaches you that letting go is not the end of love. It is the beginning of wisdom. Human attraction is rarely logical. It is psychological, emotional, and deeply unconscious. The truth is, people are not drawn back to what they can easily understand or possess. They are drawn to what unsettles them, what awakens something deeper within, what mirrors a part of themselves they have not yet mastered. This is the unconscious pull, the magnetic force that draws a person back to what they once rejected, not because they changed their mind, but because your energy began to reflect something they cannot define, yet cannot escape. Carl Jung taught that everything we reject externally is often what we have not yet integrated internally. When a man says, "No," and walks away, it is often because he felt a loss of control, not over you, but over the emotions you triggered within him. You became a mirror, showing him parts of himself he was not ready to face: vulnerability, fear of inadequacy, or the discomfort of being seen too clearly. At first, his ego resists that depth, it seeks safety in distance. But distance cannot dissolve what has already been awakened, and so, unconsciously, he begins to feel the pull back, not to you as a person, but to the energy he cannot master. This pull is not about logic or longing. It is about balance. The human psyche seeks completion, and anything unresolved remains like an open loop in the unconscious mind. When you detach, evolve, and stop seeking his validation, you unconsciously reverse the dynamic. He once had control through your attention, but when you withdraw it, you shift the energetic balance. Now, he feels the absence of what once affirmed him. Your silence becomes his mirror. Your calm becomes his contradiction. The energy he thought he understood becomes something mysterious, and mystery is irresistible to the unconscious. This is why he returns, not always physically, but energetically. He feels the gravity of what he cannot define. He feels the echo of what he cannot control. He may not even realize it, but something in him remembers the frequency of your presence, the depth of your energy, the steadiness of your silence. It is not need that pulls him, it is recognition. Recognition of something rare, something that stands firm in a world full of noise and chaos. The paradox is that the moment you stop trying to be remembered, you become unforgettable. When you no longer perform for attention, your authenticity becomes magnetic. The unconscious does not crave the predictable. It craves the profound. And your self-possession, your peace, your refusal to beg or bend, becomes the very thing that haunts him. The unconscious pull is not about manipulation, it is about resonance. You no longer chase him. He chases the reflection of himself that only you awakened. You become the mirror he cannot turn away from, because through you, he glimpsed the depth he lost within himself. And in that reflection, control dissolves, but attraction deepens. For what cannot be controlled is often what the soul cannot forget. There comes a moment when your growth becomes a reflection rather than a reaction. You no longer try to prove your worth, win anyone back, or explain what they failed to see. You simply rise, and in that rising something powerful happens. The person who once walked away begins to see himself through the mirror of your evolution. Your transformation exposes his stagnation. Your peace reveals his unrest. Your wholeness shines a light on the emptiness he tried to hide. This is the mirror effect, the unspoken confrontation between your becoming and his avoidance. Carl Jung believed that every relationship is a psychological projection. We do not see people as they are, We see them through the lens of our own consciousness. When you evolve, the projection shatters. The version of you he once knew, needy, uncertain, available, no longer exists. What remains is a reflection of what he could have become, but didn't. And that realization is unsettling. Because while you used the pain of loss to evolve, he used avoidance to escape. The paths diverged, and now your light exposes the shadows he refused to face. This is why your evolution disturbs him. It's not that he hates your growth, he fears what it reveals. It forces him to confront the emotional vacancy he's been covering with distractions, pride, or control. He begins to see the depth of what he lost. Not in ownership, but in understanding. Your strength no longer validates him, it challenges him. Your silence no longer soothes him, it reminds him of what he failed to nurture. Your detachment becomes the echo of his emotional absence. The mirror effect is both beautiful and brutal. It teaches that you do not need revenge, persuasion, or explanation. Growth itself is enough. The simple act of becoming more conscious, more grounded, more self-assured, becomes its own statement. You no longer need to tell him he mishandled you. Your peace does. You no longer need to say he underestimated you. Your energy proves it. You no longer need closure. Your evolution is closure. And yet, beneath his indifference, a quiet restlessness begins to stir. He may not say it aloud, but he feels it. The dissonance between your rising frequency and his lingering emptiness. What once felt ordinary now feels sacred. What once was taken for granted now appears unattainable. He returns not out of love, but out of longing, for the reflection of wholeness he once glimpsed in you. But what he fails to realize is that the reflection he seeks no longer belongs to him. It belongs to your becoming. The mirror effect is life's poetic justice. It requires no effort, no manipulation, no revenge. You simply continue evolving, and in doing so, you illuminate what others choose to avoid within themselves. You become the reminder that healing is possible, that power can be gentle, and that love without need is the highest form of freedom. In the end, your evolution does not expose his emptiness to shame him. It exposes it so he might one day awaken too. The moment he returns is often misunderstood. Many assume it is because of longing, desire, or unmet need, but that is rarely the truth. Return is not a transaction, it is a recognition. It is the unconscious acknowledgement of something he could not fully possess or understand before, a reflection of your power, calm, and wholeness that now demands notice. He does not come back because you chased him. He comes back because your absence and evolution have made your value undeniable. Carl Jung emphasized that human interactions are often projections of our inner psyche. What he returns to is not just you, but the mirror of his own incompleteness and unrecognized potential. He is drawn to the energy you embody, the self-respect, the peace, the silent strength he once dismissed or resisted. Your growth awakens something in him he cannot replicate within himself, creating a magnetic tension that pulls him back. This is not about dependency, it is about recognition. Recognition of what is rare, whole, and unconquered. When someone returns, it is usually because they encountered a void that only your presence filled. Not a void you created for them, but one they refused to confront until now. They sense the shift in energy, the alignment of your mind, heart, and spirit. They see that your world continues to revolve not around them, but around the principles, values, and boundaries you refuse to compromise. That is the pull of recognition, the understanding that your presence is powerful, independent, and undiminished by rejection or absence. The power of return lies in the fact that it validates your self-mastery. It is proof that your worth is intrinsic, not contingent on approval. When you stop chasing validation, you create space for authentic recognition. This recognition is deeper than desire. It is respect for what you embody. He sees that the energy he once overlooked is not something to control, manipulate, or dismiss. It is something to honor. And in honoring it, he returns, not as a conqueror, but as a witness to your strength. Return is also a test of your alignment, of your boundaries, of your continued self-respect. It challenges you to maintain the clarity you gained in his absence. The greatest power lies in receiving someone's return without compromise, without reverting to need. You no longer attempt to reclaim them. You simply allow their recognition to exist in the reality of your continued evolution. Ultimately, the return is a profound statement about human energy. It demonstrates that the universe, relationships, and even those who leave are drawn not to need, but to authenticity. People are magnetized by presence, not pursuit. By embodying your full self, you create an undeniable gravity. He comes back not because you are incomplete without him, but because your completeness is impossible to ignore. The truth is simple: need attracts temporary attention, but recognition commands lasting reverence. And when someone returns, it is a mirror reflecting your transformation, your self-respect, and the unshakable energy that no rejection could ever diminish.